Despite its name, Fang was an ordinary small town in a northern province of Chiang Mai, situated on the banks of a river. It made a convenient stopover for river traders and passengers throughout most of the year. A few barges, rafts, and sometimes even a large sailboat could usually be found moored at Fang. But all that was long ago, before the creation of the Trial of Champions. Now, once a year, the river is crowned with boats as people arrive from hundreds of miles around, hoping to witness the breaking of an ancient tradition and see a victor in the Trial of Champions. On the 1st of May each year, warriors and heroes come to Fang to face the test of their lives. Survival is unlikely, yet many take the risk, for the prize is great. A purse of 10,000 gold pieces and the freedom of Chiang Mai forever. But to become champion is no easy task. Some years ago, a powerful baron of Fang called Sukhumvit decided to bring attention to his town by creating the ultimate contest. With the help of the townspeople, he constructed a labyrinth deep in the hillside behind Fang, from which there was only one exit. The labyrinth was filled with all kinds of deadly tricks and traps and loathsome monsters. Sukhumvit had designed it in meticulous detail, so that anybody hoping to face its challenge would have to use their wits as well as weapon skill. When he was finally satisfied that all was complete, he put his labyrinth to the test. He picked 10 of his finest guards, and fully armed, they marched into the labyrinth. They were never seen again. The tale of the ill-fated guards soon spread throughout the land, and it was then that Sukhumvit announced the first Trial of Champions. Messengers and news sheets carried his challenge, 10,000 gold pieces and freedom of Chiang Mai forever to any person surviving the perils of the labyrinth of Fang. The first year, 17 brave warriors attempted the walk, as it later became known. Not one reappeared. As the years passed and the Trial of Champions continued, it attracted more and more challengers and spectators. Fang prospered and would prepare itself months in advance for the spectacle it hosted each May. The town would be decorated, tents erected, dining halls built, musicians, dancers, fire eaters, illusionists, and every sort of entertainer hired, and entries registered from hopeful individuals intent on making the walk. The last week of April found the people of Fang and its visitors in wild celebration. Everybody sang, danced, and laughed until the day broke on the 1st of May, when the town thronged to the gates of the labyrinth to watch the first challenger of the year step forward to face the Trial of Champions. Having seen one of Sukhumvit's challenges nailed to a tree, you decide that this year you will attempt the walk. For the last 5 years, you have been attracted to it not for the rewards, but for the simple fact that nobody has ever yet emerged victorious from the labyrinth. You intend to make this the year in which a champion is crowned. Gathering up a few belongings, you set off immediately. 2 days' walk takes you west to the coast, where you enter the cursed port, Black Sand. Wasting no time in that city of thieves, you buy your passage on a small boat sailing north to where the river Coke meets the sea, and from there you raft upriver for 4 days, until finally you arrive in Fang. The trial begins in 3 days' time, and the town is in an almost hysterical mood of excitement. You register your entry with the officials and are given a violet scarf to tie around your arm, informing everyone of your status. For 3 days, you enjoy Fang's greatest hospitality, and are treated like a demigod. During the long merriment, you almost forget your purpose in Fang, but the evening before the trial, the magnitude of the task ahead begins to dominate your thoughts. Later, you are taken to a special guest house and are shown your room. There is a splendid 4-poster bed with satin sheets to help you rest, but there is little time left for sleep. Just before dawn, a trumpet call awakens you from vivid dreams of flaming pits and giant black spiders. Minutes later, there is a knock on your door, and a man's voice rings out saying, "Your challenge begins soon. Please be ready to leave in 10 minutes. You climb out of bed, walk over to the window and open the shutters. Already people are thronging the streets, moving quietly through the morning mist. Spectators, no doubt on their way to the labyrinth, hoping to find good vantage points from which to watch the competitors. Walking over to a wooden table on which your trusty sword and shield lie, you pick them up and cut the air with a mighty sweep, wondering which beasts your sword's sharp edge may soon have to meet. You open the door into the corridor, and a small man greets you with a low bow as you emerge from your bedroom. "Please follow me," he says. He turns to his left and walks quickly towards the stairs at the end of the corridor. Walking through a parting in the crowds, you see Baron Suckenbit himself, standing by the entrance waiting to greet the contender in the trial of champions. You count 5 others standing proudly in line, their violet scarves displayed for all to see. There are 2 bare-chested barbarians dressed in furs. They stand completely motionless, legs straight and slightly apart, arms thrust forward to rest on the hilts of their long, double-headed battle axes. A sleek elven woman with golden hair and feline green eyes is adjusting the crossbelt of daggers wrapped around her leather tunic. Of the 2 remaining men, one is covered from head to foot in iron plate armor, with a plumed helmet and a crested shield. The other is cloaked in black robes, only his dark eyes showing between the swarms of his black-faced scars. Long knives, a wire garrote, and other silent death weapons hang from his belt. The 5 contenders acknowledge your arrival with almost imperceptible nods of the head, and you turn to face the exultant crowd for the last time. Suddenly, a hush falls over the crowd as Baron Suckenbit steps forward, holding 6 bamboo sticks. You draw one from his outstretched hand, and you read the word, 5th. Then the trial begins. The knight is first. He salutes the crowd before disappearing into the tunnel, and is followed half an hour later by the elf. Next goes a barbarian, and then the dark assassin. Next, it's your turn. But before embarking on your adventure, we must first determine your own strengths and weaknesses. You have, in your possession, a sword, a shield, and a backpack for carrying provisions for the trip. You have been preparing for your quest by training yourself in swordplay and exercising vigorously. To see how effective your preparations have been, dice will be rolled to determine your skill, stamina, and luck scores. Or, if you wish to begin your adventure immediately, you can choose between 3 ready-made adventurers. You can choose to be Alaric Ironwood, whose approach in battle is simple and direct. To charge forwards, huge shoulders whirling his sword manically about his head, chopping left and right with such force and speed as to quickly put any enemy off getting too close. And should they ever manage to sneak a blow in under this onslaught, Alaric's impressive physique will normally just brush it off, as if it were a scratch. Born Fang himself many moons ago, Alaric is a hero to the locals. His mother still lives there, a diminutive woman who makes her living as a seamstress. And quite how she produced such a gigantic warrior no one quite knows. But the popular theory is that somewhere down his ancestral line, giant blood runs in his veins. Alaric's initial skill is 8, his initial stamina is 23, and his initial luck is 7. Alaric also carries a potion of strength that gives 2 opportunities to restore his stamina points to their initial amount. You can choose to be Loretta Starfire, the most feared woman in all of Alancia. Even murderous highwaymen will deliberately evade her as she travels. And in the cities, battle-scarred mercenaries avoid this slightly built, intense-looking adventurer. Soldier and bandit alike, they're all terrified of the strange connection that binds Loretta to the tides of fortune. It is not so much that good luck befalls her. It is the fact that anybody who crosses her always ends up suffering the gravest misfortune. Tales abound of pickpockets who have had their hands severed in bizarre accidents after trying to steal from her. Of opponents in combat who have stumbled and fallen on their own swords. Little is known of Loretta's background, but there are whispers, perhaps not wholly unfounded, that some long-lost dark magic fills her soul. Loretta's initial skill is 9, her initial stamina is 11, and her initial luck is 11. Loretta also carries a potion of fortune that gives 2 opportunities to not only restore her luck points to their initial amount, but will increase her initial luck score by 1. Lastly, before you begin your quest, you are given enough provisions for 10 meals. When you eat a meal, your stamina score will increase by 4 points. But don't forget, your stamina can never exceed the initial amounts you've just set. You have a long way to go, so use your provisions wisely. During your adventure, you'll enter into combat a number of times, and the further you go, the tougher your opponents will be. Combat takes place over several rounds, and your attack strength is based on yours and your enemy's skill scores. For each round of battle, we'll roll 2 dice for you and 2 for your opponent, adding the results to your skill scores. These are your respective attack strengths. Whoever's attack strength is the highest wins that round of combat. If you both had the same attack strength in a round, then it will be a tie. In some battles, you can take an opportunity to escape. But beware. If you do run away, your opponent will automatically score 1 hit on you as you flee, costing you 2 stamina points. So be sure you have enough. Such is the price of cowardice. You are playing using the new battle system, where the battle takes place over 3 rounds. Your sheer battle-hardened nature will mean you'll always win the battle after the 3 rounds, but every round you lose will cost you 2 stamina points. So be careful. Losing all your stamina will still be fatal. At the start of each round, you'll have a short time to decide to fight or to build up your stamina by eating your provisions or taking a potion, if you have one. Now it is your turn to salute the crowd. Holding your violet scarf aloft, you take one final deep breath of cool, fresh air before turning to pass between the stone-pillared gateway into Succumbit's corridors of power to face unknown perils on the walk through the mighty Baron's Deathtrap dungeon. The clamour of the excited spectators gradually fades behind you as you venture deep into the gloom of the cavern. Large crystals hang from the tunnel roof at 20-metre intervals, radiating just enough soft light for you to see your way. As your eyes gradually become accustomed to the near darkness, you begin to see movement all around. Spiders and beetles crawling up and down the chiseled walls disappear quickly into cracks and crevices as they sense your approach. Rats and mice scurry along the floor ahead of you. Droplets of water drip into small pools with an eerie plopping sound which echoes down the tunnel. The air is cold, moist, and dank. After walking slowly along the tunnel for about 5 minutes, you arrive at a stone table standing against the wall to your left. On it, there are 6 boxes, one of which has your name painted on its lid. The lid of the box lifts off easily, and inside you find 2 gold pieces and a note written on a small piece of parchment addressed to you. After placing the gold in your pocket, you read the message, which says, "Well done. At least you had the sense to stop and take advantage of the token aid given to you. Now I can advise you that you will need to find and use several items if you hope to pass triumphantly through my Deathtrap dungeon." Signed, Succumbit. Memorizing the advice on the note, you tear it into tiny pieces and continue north along the tunnel, where you come to a junction. A white arrow painted on one wall points west. On the floor, you can see wet footprints made by those who entered before you. It's hard to be sure, but it looks as though 3 of them followed the direction of the arrow, while one decided to go east. Ahead, you can see a large obstruction on the tunnel floor. Although it is too dark to make out exactly what it is, the wet eastbound footprints you have been following carry on towards the obstruction. You see that the obstruction is a large brown boulder-like object. You touch it with your hand and are surprised to find that it is soft and spongy. Your sword easily pierces the thin outer casing of the giant spore ball. A thick brown cloud of spores bursts out of the ball and envelops you. Some of the spores stick to your skin and start to itch terribly. You lose 2 stamina points as great lumps come up on your face and arms, and your skin feels as if it is on fire. Frantically scratching your itching lumps, you step over the now deflated spore ball. Pressing on east, you turn left, which heads north for as far as you can see. The footprints you are following start to peter out as the tunnel becomes gradually drier. Soon you are beyond the dripping roof and the pools on the floor. You notice the air becoming hotter, and you find yourself panting even though you are walking quite slowly. In a small recess on the left-hand wall, you see a section of bamboo standing on its end. Lifting it down, you see it is filled with a clear liquid. Your throat is painfully dry, and you feel a little dizzy from the heat in the tunnel. The water in the bamboo pipe is welcomely refreshing and adds 1 stamina point. It also contains a magical solution which will enable you to be exposed to melting point temperatures without harm. Discarding the bamboo, you start off north again, in good spirits. You find yourself dripping with sweat as the temperature continues to rise. As you struggle on, the heat intensifies until it becomes so unbearable that you feel yourself begin to pass out. Although the temperature in the tunnel is higher than you could normally tolerate, the liquid from the bamboo pipe keeps you alive, and mercifully, after a few moments, the temperature drops rapidly and soon feels almost cool again. On the left-hand side of the tunnel is a closed door. It has a small iron plate in it, which looks like it might slide open. The small plate slides open easily, and you find yourself peering into a room with a deep pit in the floor behind the door. On the opposite wall, there is a coil of rope hanging on one of 2 iron hooks. The door swings open into the room, and you step back and jump over the pit. You put the rope in your backpack and jump back over the pit to leave the room and head north. Ahead, you see that the tunnel turns sharply to the left. You turn a corner and almost bump straight into 2 fierce-looking orcs armed with morning stars and wearing leather armor. You are totally unprepared for them and struggle to ready your weapons. The orcs roar, and as you draw your sword, one of them swings its morning star at you, which thuds into your arm, knocking your sword to the floor. You must fight them bare-handed, reducing your skill by 4 for the duration of the combat. Fortunately, the tunnel is too narrow for both orcs to attack you at once, so you fight them, one at a time. You quickly eat some provisions, increasing your stamina by 4 points. You parry, but your enemy is too fast and you crack your head on the floor as it knocks you to the ground. The orc's morning star is a formidable weapon, and you can't stop it smashing into your ankles, knocking you off balance. The orc runs at you, smashing you painfully into the wall.
The first orc slumps lifeless to the floor, so you turn your attention to the other.
You quickly eat some provisions, increasing your stamina by 4 points. You quickly eat some provisions, increasing your stamina by 4 points. You parry, but your enemy is too fast and you crack your head on the floor as it knocks you to the ground. The orc takes a huge swing directly at your head, but you duck just in time. Neither of you are harmed. The orc's morning star is a formidable weapon, and you can't stop it smashing into your ankles, knocking you off balance.
Your fists are sore from the fight, but you pick up your sword and see if the orcs had anything of use. Inside one of the orc's pockets, you find 1 gold piece and a hollow wooden tube. You put your findings in your backpack and set off west. As you walk along, droplets of water again start falling from the tunnel ceiling. Heading west, you see wet footprints made by the same boots that you followed earlier. They lead to a closed iron door in the right-hand wall of the tunnel, but do not seem to go any further. The door opens into a large chamber, where you are shocked to see one of your rivals who has obviously met a sudden gory death. It is one of the barbarians, and he is impaled on several long iron spikes that are fixed to a frame which has sprung out of the floor. A lot of debris litters the floor, concealing a hidden tripwire which he must have stepped on, releasing the spiked frame. In the far wall is an alcove, in which you can see a silver goblet standing on a small wooden table. The pouch on the barbarian's belt is empty, apart from some strange-looking dried meat wrapped in a cloth. The meat contains herbs which increase your strength, adding 3 to your stamina score. You walk slowly over to the alcove, carefully checking the floor for any more hidden traps. You see that the goblet contains a sparkling red liquid. As you lift the goblet, it releases a sprung catch and a dart shoots out of the wooden table leg. This will be a test of your luck. We'll roll 2 dice, and if the number rolled is equal to or less than your current luck score, you have been lucky. But if the roll is higher than your luck score, then your luck isn't in. Your reflexes are sharp, and you quickly jump aside. The dart whistles past, only just missing you, and thuds into the opposite wall. You see the goblet lying on the floor, and the red liquid running away in rivulets over the grey stone. At least the goblet may be of use. So you put it in your backpack, leave the chamber, and continue west. The passage soon leads to a junction where you notice more footprints on the floor, possibly as many as 3 pairs heading north from the south passage. You decide to follow them to where the passage opens out into a wide cavern, which is darker but much drier. Ahead, you see the footprints gradually fade, then disappear. There is a large idol in the center of the cavern that must be 6 meters high. In its head are jeweled eyes, each as big as your fist. On either side of the idol stand 2 giant stuffed, bird-like creatures. The idol is very smooth and will be difficult to climb, but the rope you found earlier will help here, and you make it into a lasso. You whirl the rope above your head and throw it up at the idol, smiling happily as it lands around its neck. You then tighten the noose and start to climb, hauling yourself up the rope. You are soon at the top of the idol, sitting on the bridge of its nose and holding on to the rope. You draw your sword and wonder which jeweled eye to prize out first. You try to force the point of your sword under the emerald eye. Much to your surprise, the emerald shatters on contact, releasing a jet of poisonous gas straight into your face. The gas knocks you out, and you release the rope, bouncing down the idol and crashing onto the stone floor. Your adventure ends here. There is a large idol in the center of the cavern that must be 6 meters high. The idol is very smooth and will be difficult to climb, but the rope you found earlier will help here. As you touch the idol's emerald eye, you hear a creaking sound below you. Looking down, you are shocked to see the 2 stuffed birds flying off. Their wings flap in jerky movements, but they are soon above you and look set to attack. You'll fight the flying guardians one at a time, but reduce your skill by 2 during this combat because of your restricted position.
The guardian snaps at you with its vicious beak, but you're able to smash the hilt of your sword into its outstretched neck. You manage to grab one of its legs, flipping it over, making it fall fast, but it recovers just before hitting the ground. Neither of you are harmed. The beating wing of the guardian smashes into the side of your head, leaving you seeing stars and sapping your stamina.
The crumpled form of the first flying guardian falls crashing to the floor, so you ready yourself to take on the second.
Coming at you with its razor-sharp talons, you're able to swipe your sword, partially removing one of the guardian's toes. You're able to grab the wing of the guardian and send it crashing into the idol. It recovers, but you took some of its stamina. The guardian snaps at you with its vicious beak, but you're able to smash the hilt of your sword into its outstretched neck.
Your final swipe dispatches the second flying guardian. You look down and see the crumpled bodies of the two flying guardians lying motionless on the floor. You start to prise out the idol's emerald eye with the tip of your sword. At last it comes free, and you are surprised by its weight when it falls into your hand. Hoping it may be of use later, you put it in your backpack. You try to force the point of your sword under the emerald eye. Much to your surprise, the emerald shatters on contact, releasing a jet of poisonous gas straight into your face. The gas knocks you out, and you release the rope, bouncing down the idol and crashing onto the stone floor. Your adventure ends here. There is a large idol in the center of the cavern that the idol is
You lunge for the creature as it flies above you, but you're coming at you with its razor-sharp talons. Clawing at your leg with its talons, the guardian rips away
the crumpled form.
The guardian snaps at you with its vicious beak. You quickly eat some provisions, increasing your stamina by 4 points. You manage to grab one of its legs, flipping it over. You're able to grab the wing of the guardian and send it crap.
Your final swipe, you look down. Back on solid ground once again on the cavern floor, you try to shake the rope off the idol's neck. This will be a test of your luck. Remember, 2 dice are rolled. Equal to or less than your current luck score, you'll have been lucky. Higher than your current luck score, you have been unlucky. The lasso loosens itself, and you are able to shake it free of the idol's neck. It falls to the floor with a loud clatter. You quickly coil the rope up again and put it in your backpack. Wasting no more time in the cavern, you run forward to the tunnel in the northern wall. Not much farther down the tunnel, you come to a closed door on your left. Putting your ear to the door, you listen intently but hear nothing. You enter a room which is small and completely empty. As soon as you are inside, the door slams shut behind you. Suddenly a voice booms out of nowhere, shouting, "Welcome to Deathtrap Dungeon, the ingenious killer labyrinth of my master. Adventurer, I trust you will pay your respects to my master by shouting out his name." You take a deep breath and shout, "Hail Succumvit!" Once again, the mysterious voice calls out. Only this time its tone is full of contempt and derision. "So, we have a sniveling weed in our midst, do we?" sneers the voice. "My master has a special gift for you, loathsome creep." Suddenly, water starts pouring into the room through a hole in the ceiling. It soon rises above your ankles, and there is no apparent way of escape. You wade back to the door. It is firmly locked, but in desperation you try ramming it with your shoulder. We'll see how skillful you really are. Remember, A roll equal to or less than your skill score means you have been skillful. But a roll higher than your skill could end badly. The door cannot withstand the furious battering you are giving it. The center panel cracks and splinters, enabling you to kick a hole in it large enough for you to squeeze through. Soaked, but happy to have survived your ordeal, you set off north again. The tunnel twists and turns, but keeps steadily north. Ahead, you see a thin shaft of blue light streaming down from the ceiling to the floor. It sparkles and shimmers, and you can see images of laughing faces in the light. As soon as your head goes under the blue light, you hear the sound of muffled voices. The faces are no longer laughing, but have changed their expressions to one of despair and anguish. A young girl's sad face hovers in front of you, and she begins to whisper a poem. Transfixed, you listen intently, believing that she has a special message for you as she recites, "When corridor doth water meet, do not make a quick retreat. Take a breath and jump deep in, if your trial you hope to win." Memorizing the spirit girl's poem, you step through the shaft of light and quickly head on north. You come to an arched doorway set in the right-hand wall of the tunnel. The heavy stone door is closed, but there is an iron latch and a round handle. Lifting the latch and pushing the heavy stone door open, you find yourself in a large cabin. The light is dim and murky, but as your eyes begin to adjust, you see that the walls are covered in green algae and running with moisture. The floor is strewn with straw. The atmosphere is warm, damp, and fetid, and a soft humming sound fills the air. You step gingerly through the straw towards a corner of the cabin where there appears to be a shallow pit. Peering warily into the pit, you are disgusted to see a mass of pale, writhing worms, some as much as 1/2 meter long. Nauseated, you are about to turn away when you notice that their undulating bodies are swarming around a dagger, its point held fast in a crack in the pit floor. The hilt is cased in black leather, studded with opals, and the blade is fashioned from a strange, reddish-black burnished metal you have never seen before. You long to touch the dagger, but this would mean plunging your hand in among the writhing worm. Taking a deep breath, you lean over the pit and plunge your forearm into the mass of wriggling worms. They are cold and clammy and feel extremely nasty, but at least they are harmless, and you are able to seize the dagger by the hilt. You give it a hard tug and it comes away from the crack in which the tip was embedded. Admiring its beauty, and wondering whether it might once have belonged to some luckless contestant, you put the opal-studded dagger firmly in your belt and leave the cabin. As you make your way back to the doorway, the buzzing sound increases in intensity, and you look around desperately to discover where it's coming from. Glancing up in the nick of time, you see a huge and grotesque black shape of a giant fly emerging from a recess high up in the cavern wall. As it gets closer, You realize that it's at least 1.5 meters long. Its opaque wings vibrate, making the sickening buzzing noise you can hear. And its 6 black, hairy legs are poised to grasp your body. Below, its multifaceted eyes is a long, shiny black proboscis, which darts in and out venomously. You have stolen the giant fly's treasure from her brood of maggots, and you must face the consequences. It's time to test your luck again. Remember, a roll equal to or less than your luck score means you've been lucky, but a roll higher than your luck could end badly. The giant fly swoops down again to try to capture you, but this time you manage to evade its outstretched legs. Stepping back, you draw your sword and prepare to fight the hideous insect as it turns to attack you again. The creature flies at you so close you can't use your weapons. Grabbing it by its legs, you swing around, slamming it into a wall. You spin your sword around your head, clipping the fly and removing part of one of its legs. You hurl yourself at your enemy, fist flailing, and land a stunning blow. Pleased with your victory, you wipe the vile yellow slime from the blade of your sword and walk quickly to the door, back to the tunnel, and head north. The tunnel ends shortly at a junction. Looking left and right, you see a narrow passage disappearing into the dim distance. You walk down the passage and soon find yourself standing at the edge of a deep, dark pit. The passage continues east on the other side of the pit. You think you could probably jump over the pit, but you are not sure. There is a rope hanging down from the ceiling over the center of the pit. Gripping the rope firmly, you step back to take a running jump. However, in the dim light, you do not notice that someone has cut the rope almost in two, just a little way above the section you are holding. As you swing out across the pit, it suddenly breaks, and you scream with fear as you plunge headlong to the depths below. You land heavily on your back, but luckily your backpack cushions your fall, only costing you 1 skill point and 2 stamina points. It could have been much worse. The darkness is almost pitch black at the bottom of the pit, and you crawl along the floor, groping in front of you. Suddenly your hand touches something cold, hard and smooth. The object is small and round, but you cannot figure out what it is. You place it in your backpack, hoping to see what it is once you are out of the pit. You continue to crawl forward and soon reach the pit wall. It's too smooth to climb, and you have to cut hand and toe holds in it with your sword. This takes a long time, but finally you climb out of the pit on the east side. You immediately check out the object in your backpack and discover that you have found an orb of blood-red ruby. You are absolutely delighted and head off east in high spirits, whistling softly. The tunnel makes a sudden left turn and continues north as far as you can see. You soon arrive at a closed wooden door in the left-hand wall. The door opens into a large candlelit room filled with incredibly lifelike statues of knights and warriors. A white-haired old man, dressed in tattered rags, jumps out from behind one of the statues and starts to giggle. Though he looks like a fool, the sparkle in his eyes makes you think there is more to him. In a high-pitched voice, he says, "Oh, good! Another stone for my garden. I'm glad you have come to join your friends. Now, I'm a fair man, so I'll ask you a question. If you answer correctly, I'll let you go free. But if your answer is wrong, I'll turn you to stone." He starts to chuckle again, obviously pleased with your arrival. The old man points at one of the statues, and you recognize it immediately. It is the knight who started the trial of champions. The agonized look on his face locked in stone for eternity. The old man smiles, saying,
"This man weighs 100 pounds plus half his weight. How much does he weigh?"
"What will you answer?" Still smiling, the old man looks at you and says quietly, "Wrong." And before you can do anything else, he mumbles a few strange words into the air. You feel your muscles harden and your skin go taut. You start to panic, but there is nothing you can do to stop the petrification of your body. Your adventure ends here. The tunnel makes a sudden... The old man points at one of the statues. Still smiling, the old man looks at you and says quietly, "Wrong." And before you can do anything else, he mumbles a few strange words into the air. You feel your muscles harden and your skin go taut. You start to panic, but there is nothing you can do to stop the petrification of your body. Your adventure ends here. The tunnel the door Still smiling, the old man looks at you and says,
"Well done, stranger. You have answered correctly. I wish you good fortune during the rest of the trial of champions. And to this end, I shall increase your powers."
He then mutters a few more unintelligible words, and you feel a powerful surge soar through your body, increasing your skill, stamina, and luck by 1. You bid the old man farewell and leave his room to continue north along the passage. Only a few meters further down the passage, you see another closed door in the left-hand wall. The letter X is scratched into its center panel. Putting your ear to the door, you listen intently but can hear nothing. The door opens into a large room. Looking around, you see an alcove in the west wall. In the middle of the room, sitting in the chair, is the skeleton of an armed warrior, possibly a contestant from years gone by. The skeletal fingers of its right hand grip a crumpled parchment. At the back of the alcove are some steps leading down into a cellar. Cobwebs brush your face as you descend. The cellar ceiling is at the back of the alcove. At the back of the alcove are some steps leading down into a cellar. Cobwebs brush your face. Base, only a few meters further down the path. The door, touching the parchment, has precisely the effect you had feared. The skeleton lurches forward, and rising from its chair in a series of jerky movements, raises its sword to strike you. Lunging sideways, you draw your sword to defend yourself. You jump back as the skeleton swings its sword, but not quickly enough, and it tears into your shoulder, sapping your stamina.
You quickly eat some provisions, increasing your stamina by 4 points.
The skeleton is strong, but slow. You swing your sword, which smashes into its leg. You dodge to the side as the warrior swings its sword. You kick out, knocking its legs out from under it. Once again, you reach for the parchment, only this time lying amidst a pile of broken bones. Unfolding it, you see a map of a room with a drawing of a hideous creature inside it. Beneath the monster is a rhyme, which reads, "Should you meet the manticore, of its tail beware. Shield yourself against the spikes, flying through the air." You fold up the piece of parchment and put it in your backpack, repeating the rhyme over and over to yourself. You walk across to the alcove. At the back of the alcove are some steps leading down into a cellar. Cobwebs brush your face as you descend. The cellar ceiling is quite low, and the floor is strewn with debris. In the middle of the wall opposite you is an archway, which leads into another crystal-lit tunnel. There are large mushrooms growing on the debris to your right. You break off a large piece of the mushroom and bite into it eagerly. But immediately your stomach feels bloated, and you can even see it beginning to bulge below your belt. Your whole body starts to expand, bursting out of your clothes with a loud ripping sound. You grow bigger and bigger, and soon your face is pressed against the ceiling. The mushrooms you have eaten are much sought after by wizards for their growth potions, but to you they spell doom. You are too large ever to leave the cellar, and your adventure ends here. Only a few meters further down the passage, you see You run around the jerking skeleton, smashing your sword into its arm. The skeleton is strong. You dodge to the side as the warrior swings it. At the back of the tunnel continues west for several hundred meters, finally ending at some steps leading up to a closed trap door. You climb the steps slowly, hearing muffled voices above you. In the dim light, you can see that the trap door is not locked. You hear footsteps, and suddenly the trapdoor is thrown back. For a few seconds, you are completely blinded by the bright light from the room above, and do not see the goblin thrusting his spear downwards, or hear his sadistic laughter as the point pierces your neck. Your adventure ends here. The tunnel continues. You throw the trapdoor open and run up the steps into a bright, lantern-lit room. Two goblins are sharpening their short swords on a stone set in the middle of the floor. You catch them momentarily off guard, but they quickly recover and both rush forward to attack you. A point of note here, adventurer. Because of the shape of the room, both goblins will have a separate attack on you in each attack round. However, here your attack will only be effective on one of the goblins. Against the other, you must still use your attack strength in a normal way. But even if your attack would have been effective, you will not wound it. It will just count this as though you have defended yourself. However, if its attack strength is greater, it will have wounded you in the normal way.
Your enemy is strong, but slow, and screams in pain as your sword sinks into his leg. You both swing for each other, and in the confusion, both miss. You hurl yourself at your enemy, fists flailing, and land a stunning blow. You lunge at the creature's stomach with your sword drawn, but the creature whips around, parrying your blow. Neither of you are harmed. You thrust your sword, and you clearly damage the creature. Your enemy is strong, but slow, and screams in pain as your sword sinks into his leg. You try to run around the side of the creature, but it grabs your arm, throwing you hard into the wall. You quickly eat some provisions, increasing your stamina by 4 points. You hurl yourself at your enemy, fists flailing, and land a stunning blow.
Triumphant in one of your toughest battles to date, you see that the only furniture in the goblin's room is a table, 2 chairs, and a cupboard on the wall. There are 2 closed doors, one in the west wall and the other in the north wall. The cupboard contains a wooden mallet and 10 iron spikes, which you put in your backpack while wondering which door to open. The door opens into another tunnel, which rises gently into the distance. After walking uphill for a while, the tunnel levels out, and you soon arrive at a door in the right-hand wall, to which a withered hand is nailed. You enter a room in which a man in tattered clothing is standing chained to the wall by his left arm, and you see that his right hand is missing and realize that this must be the one nailed to the door. Pleading for mercy, he cowers back from you as far as his chains will allow. You step up to the frightened man and cleave the chain with your sword. He drops to his knees and bows, thanking you over and over again. He tells you that 4 years ago, he entered the trial of champions but failed. He fell down a pit and had to be rescued by a trial master, one of Baron Circumvit's dungeon administrators. He was offered a choice between death or servitude in Deathtrap dungeon as the trial master's minion. Choosing the latter, he worked like a slave until he could stand it no longer and tried to escape. Alas, he was unsuccessful and was captured by the trial master's wandering orc guards. To teach him a lesson, they cut off his hand and condemned him to a year's imprisonment in this cell. You ask him whether he has any information that might be of use to you. He scratches his head. Well, I haven't exactly done very well in here myself, but I do know that you need to collect gems and precious stones if you hope to get out. I don't know why, but there it is. Without another word, the ragged prisoner dashes out of the room, turning left into the tunnel. You decide to keep heading north and turn right. There is an open pipe in the right-hand wall, about 1 meter in diameter. It is too dark to see far down it. You shout into it and hear your voice echoing down the iron pipe until eventually the sound fades away. The pipe is wet and slimy, but you crawl on into the dank darkness, slithering and sliding as you go. Suddenly your hand touches something hard and square, which feels as if it is made of wood. It rattles as you shake it, and you decide you must be holding a box. In the total darkness, you do not see the pipe's downward turn. You slip and, unable to get a grip on the slimy pipe, slide over the edge. Your screams echo down the pipe as you fall the 50 meters head first to the bottom. You have failed the trial of champions. There is an open pipe in removing the box lid by the light of the tunnel. You find an iron key and a large gem. It is a sapphire. Placing the items carefully in your backpack, you gain 1 luck point and set off north once again. There is a new branch in the tunnel on your left, and ahead you see 2 bodies lying on the floor. You stop and peer down the new tunnel, but seeing no doors or creatures, you decide against walking down it. With your sword drawn, you walk over to the bodies of the 2 orc guards. At least one of your rivals in the trial of champions must still be ahead of you. A quick search of the bodies produces nothing, apart from a necklace of teeth around the neck of one of the orcs. The necklace is an amulet of strength, which adds 1 skill point and 1 stamina point. Pleased with your find, you continue your quest north. The tunnel soon ends at a junction. Standing there alone and wondering which way to go is one of your rivals. It is one of the barbarians. You call out to him, but at first he does not answer. He merely stares at you coldly, his hands firmly gripping his axe. You walk up to him and ask which way he is heading. He grunts his reply, saying that he is going west, and you may go with him if you wish. Although you are slightly uneasy in each other's company, knowing that there can only be one winner in the trial of champions, you are both content to share in the benefits of a temporary alliance. And you begin to tell each other of your exploits so far, of the monsters and traps encountered and the dangers overcome. Walking along, you soon come to the edge of a wide pit. It is too deep and dark to see to the bottom. The barbarian suggests he lowers you to the bottom with his rope, saying he has a torch which he can light for you to use. You tie the rope around your waist and take hold of the lighted torch given to you by Throm as your barbarian ally.
calls himself. Taking hold of the slack rope, Throm lowers you slowly over the edge of the pit and down into the dark depths below. You can see by the light of the torch that the sides of the pit are extremely smooth. You drop about 20 meters before hitting the bottom of the pit. There, you see another tunnel heading north, and you call up to Throm and tell him of your discovery. He calls back, saying that he is going to tie the rope around a protruding rock on the edge of the pit and will come down and join you. You hear him climbing down, and soon you are together again. Throm retrieves his rope by shaking it off the rock, and you set off north along the new tunnel. On a stone ledge in the tunnel wall, you see 2 dusty leather-bound books. Throm grunts his contempt for the written word, urging you to leave the books and hurry on. The book pages are sealed together, but a small hole has been cut out in the middle of them, just large enough to hold a small corked bottle containing a clear liquid. You show it to Throm, who holds up his hand, indicating that he does not want you to come anywhere near him with it. His distrust of things unknown is strongly evident. You rub the liquid into your wounds, but they do not heal. Staring into the empty bottle, you wonder what exactly the liquid was. As you open the book, it immediately begins to disintegrate, the pages turning to dust in your hands. You manage to keep a few fragments and read the handwritten script. The book appears to be about monsters, and from what you can make out, it contains a full description of a monster called the Blood Beast. It is a horrific, bloated creature with tough, spiny skin and facial blisters which burst open to become mock eyes, evolved to hide the Blood Beast's only weak spot, the real eyes. Blood beasts usually dwell in pools of fetid slime which give off a poisonous gas so strong that it alone can easily knock people unconscious. The blood beast, although too bulbous to haul itself out of its slime pool, has a long and vicious tongue which it wraps around its victims before it drags them into its pool. As the helpless and still living victim's flesh decomposes in the vile slime, the blood beast will feed on it. You tell Throm about the grotesque blood beast. He merely shrugs his shoulders and tells you to get going. Setting off, you continue your journey north with Throm. The tunnel turns sharply to the right, continuing east for as far as you can see. Throm stops and tells you to halt as well. He turns his head slowly from side to side, listening. I hear footsteps coming down the tunnel towards us, he whispers. Draw your sword. You both crouch down to hide in the shadows, and not a minute too soon. For a moment later, you see the silhouette of 2 armed guards. Throm jumps up and dashes forward, screaming a loud battle cry. They are 2 cave trolls. Throm attacks the first one with his battle axe, and you run to his aid to attack the second. The troll swings low, crashing into your ankles, knocking you off balance. The troll grabs you by the throat and manages to half choke you before you get a chance to push it off.
You quickly eat some provisions, increasing your stamina by 4 points.
You parry the attack, but your enemy is too strong, and you crack your head on the floor as you hit the ground. You look to the left and see Throm standing over the cave troll he has slain. Blood is pouring out from a deep cut in his shoulder, but it does not seem to worry him. You search the bodies of the cave trolls, but find nothing apart from a bone ring on a leather cord hanging round the neck of one of them. The ring is engraved with a symbol which Throm recognizes. He explains that it must have belonged to druids of the north, and that an ancient talisman such as this will increase your powers if your body is able to accept it. As soon as you put the ring on your finger, your whole body starts to shake. We'll see how skillful you really are. Remember, a roll equal to or less than your skill score means you've been skillful, but a roll higher than your skill could end badly. Your body continues to vibrate intensely, and you feel as if you're about to pass out. But your strength is great, and you manage to withstand the tremendous shock to your system. Finally, you calm down and begin to feel the ring's beneficial powers working on you and adding 3 stamina points. You see Throm looking at you anxiously, so you reassure him that you are fully recovered. He strides off east, and you follow him eagerly. The tunnel leads into a damp cavern with a high ceiling and rock-strewn floor. Long and wet, teeth-like stalactites hang down threateningly. Their constant dripping creates milky pools on the floor. The tunnel carries on through an archway carved in the shape of a demonic mouse. You walk around the cavern, but find nothing of interest. Throm calls out behind you, saying that he has found a leather pouch under a pile of rocks. Opening the pouch, he laughs out loud as a tiny mouse runs through his fingers and scurries off into the crevice behind 2 boulders. Suddenly, you hear the sound of cracking rock above you and look up to see stalactites breaking off from the roof. Throm's booming laugh, which still echoes through the chamber, has made the stalactites vibrate and break off. You yell at Throm to run through the archway as the stalactites start to crash to the floor. This will be a test of your luck. Despite the stalactites crashing all around you, you manage to dash through the archway without injury. You look around and see Throm thundering towards you, one arm held over his head for protection. He dashes into the tunnel and leans against the cold wall, panting heavily, apologizing for starting the rockfall, and offers you his hand to shake. You tell Throm that maybe he should use sign language in future, even for laughing. You both smile and head east once more. The tunnel ends at a large oak door. Throm wastes no time in testing the handle and is somewhat surprised to find the door unlocked. He pushes it open and walks into a torch-lit chamber. Sitting alone on an ornate chair is a dwarf who bids you enter. As you do so, the oak door swings shut behind you. Adventurers, you have done well to get this far, says the dwarf in a deep voice. However, as you both know, there can only be one winner in the Trial of Champions. As Trial Master, It is my duty to Baron circumvent, to let only the most able continue. Therefore, I must devise a test of wits and strength to eliminate one of you. Please do not attempt to dispose of me. It will be utterly pointless, for, as you can see, there is no obvious way out of this chamber, and only I know where the hidden exit lies. Now, if you would care to decide between you who will go first, I shall make the necessary preparations. You look at Throm, suddenly angry that your effective partnership might come to an end. He leans over and whispers in your ear that you should try to kill the dwarf and worry about the exit later. You tell Throm that there is no point in killing the dwarf, as you will never find your way out of the chamber alone. You argue that an opportunity of tricking the dwarf might arise later, once you have found the exit from the chamber. So you intend to go through with the dwarf's test. You tell the dwarf that you are ready, and he beckons you to follow him, telling Throm to wait for his return. A secret door opens in the chamber wall, and you follow the dwarf into a small circular room. He closes the door behind you and hands you 2 bone dice, telling you to throw them onto the floor. You roll a 6 and a 2, a total of 8. The dwarf asks you to roll them again, but this time you must predict whether the total will be the same, less, or more than the 8. The dwarf looks at the dice.
Not very good at playing the odds, are you?
He sniffs. The tunnel ends at a large oak door. The dwarf looks at the dice. The tunnel ends. The dwarf congratulates you for guessing correctly. He tells you that you must now progress to the second stage of the test. He reaches for a wicker basket and tells you that a snake is held within it. He tips the basket over, and the snake drops onto the floor. It is a cobra, and it rears up in the air, ready to strike. The dwarf tells you that he wishes to test your reactions. Barehanded, you must grasp the cobra below its head, avoiding its deadly fangs. You crouch down on the floor, tensing yourself for the moment to seize it. This will be a tough test of your skill. The cobra's reactions are quicker than yours, and its hooded head shoots forward to bite you. Are you feeling lucky? Luckily for you, the cobra's fangs sink into your leather wristband. The snake recoils quickly, ready to strike again, as the dwarf tells you to test your skill again. Are you ready? With lightning speed, you thrust your hand out and grip the cobra just below its open mouth. You lift it up, and with your arm outstretched, you dangle it in front of the dwarf. He doesn't flinch, but says in his calm, expressionless way,
Please put the cobra back in the basket and prepare for the final part of the test. Follow me.
You do what he says and follow him back into the chamber, where Throm is pacing up and down, obviously ill at ease. You wave to him while the dwarf opens a second secret door and tells you to walk on through and wait for him. Again you comply, and you find yourself in another circular room, although this one resembles a small arena. The floor is covered with sand, and a small balcony runs around the arena wall. Opposite the secret entrance you came in through is an ominous-looking wooden door. Suddenly you hear a shout, and you look up to see the smiling dwarf standing on the balcony. He throws 2 pieces of paper down to you. On one of them, the words, "No crop is," are written. On the other, "Ruin moat." In his ever-calm voice, he says,
If you rearrange the letters of the words, you will find the names of 2 creatures. You may choose which one to fight in my arena of death.
Can you identify the creature by rearranging the letters? You call out to the dwarf that you are ready to fight the Minotaur. The wooden door rises slowly, and you see the fearsome beast, half man, half bull, step into the arena. Steam blows from its nostrils as it works itself up into a rage, ready to attack. Suddenly it rushes forward, swinging its double-headed axe. The Minotaur swings its axe, but you are fast enough to jump out of the way. Your speed is improving. You run directly at the Minotaur and slice at its leg as you run by. The swinging double-headed axe is a formidable weapon, and you shriek as it sinks into your arm. The dwarf calls down from the balcony, congratulating you on your victory. He throws the sack down into the arena and tells you to relax and regain your strength for the final part of the test. Then he walks off, saying he will return in about 10 minutes. You open the sack and find a jug of wine and a cooked chicken. The food and drink are excellent, and you feel much better, gaining 2 more stamina points. Fully satisfied, you sit down and await the dwarf's return. After about 20 minutes, the dwarf reappears on the balcony. He calls down to you, saying,
Well, I do have an interesting problem on my hands. Prepare to fight your next opponent.
The wooden door rises once again, and you are surprised to see a familiar face. It is Throm. He is cut and badly bruised and doesn't seem to recognize you. He is clearly delirious as he staggers forward with his axe, raised to attack you. The dwarf laughs and says,
The cobra bit him, but he has the strength of an ox and managed to carry on, even though most men would have died. Now you must fight him to decide finally which of you will continue the trial of champions.
You shout abuse at the dwarf, protesting the cruelty of such a contest. He merely laughs, and you have no option but to defend yourself against poor Throm. Despite his wounds, he is immensely strong. Throm grabs you by the throat and manages to half choke you before you get a chance to push him off. You parry Throm's attack, but he is too strong, and you trip, cracking your head on the floor as you fall. You quickly eat some provisions, increasing your stamina by 4 points. Throm swings low, crashing into your ankles and knocking you off balance. Exhausted by your long duel, you fall to your knees as you stare at Throm's still body. A bitter loathing for the dwarf fills your heart. Somehow, you will avenge Throm. Engulfed in your hatred, you do not notice the dwarf enter the arena until he is standing right in front of you. a loaded crossbow aimed at your chest.
I know what you are thinking,
he says calmly.
But remember that only I know the way out of here. Get up. It's time for you to leave.
Once on your feet, the dwarf indicates that you should walk ahead of him. Back in the chamber, he crosses over to the northern wall and pushes against one of its stones. A door-like section of the wall swings out, opening into another crystal-lit tunnel. With his crossbow still aimed at your chest, the dwarf smiles, saying,
Good luck.
The dwarf is expecting your move. Furthermore, you are not as fast as you should be because of your recent ordeal, so he easily evades your punch, saying,
I could kill you now if I wished, but I yearn for a hand-to-hand fight.
Then he throws down his crossbow and draws an axe from his belt. Despite your fatigue, you think only of vengeance. Because of your condition, you must reduce your skill by 2 for the duration of the battle. Pretending to be tired, you bend over, but grab a handful of dirt and throw it in the dwarf's face, making your subsequent attack effective. You fall back as the dwarf runs towards you, but you manage to roll away before he brings his axe down on you. The dwarf runs at you, but you twist aside as your sword lands home. The now dead dwarf's chainmail coat is of the finest quality iron, obviously made by a master armorer. You strip it from his body and place it over your head, gaining you 1 skill point. There is nothing else of use to you in the chamber, so you decide to investigate the new tunnel, which soon divides into 2. You hear a buzzing sound coming from the western branch. There is a large panel of glass in the left-hand wall of the tunnel. Through it, you can see a bright, torch-lit room teeming with giant insects of every possible description. Bees, wasps, beetles, ticks. Even the mites are over 6 centimeters long. The noise is threatening. In the middle of the room, a jeweled crown lies on top of a small table. What looks like a large diamond is set in the middle of the crown. You smash the glass with the hilt of your sword, making a hole big enough to climb through. Immediately, the giant insects start swarming and jumping towards you. Wasting no time, you clamber into the room, grabbing one of the lit torches to defend yourself. The fire keeps most of the insects at bay, but by the time you have snatched the crown and climbed back into the corridor, some of them have stung you. We'll roll 1 die and add 2 to the total to decide how many stings you have suffered, reducing your stamina by 1 for each sting. The giant insects do not chase you, preferring the bright light of the room they are in. You examine the crown and see with disgust that it is merely painted iron, and the diamond is just glass and totally worthless. You throw it on the ground in a rage and wonder which way to go next. Ahead, in the far distance, you hear the sound of slow footsteps coming towards you. Unsure of who or what might be approaching, you look around for a place to hide. You see a large crack in the tunnel wall which lies in shadow. You have to squeeze yourself deep into the crack to conceal yourself completely. From this cramped position, You are unable to see the owner of the feet that shuffle slowly by. A minute later, all is quiet again as you pull yourself back out into the tunnel and head west. After a short while, you arrive at another junction in the tunnel with a choice of 2 directions. The tunnel turns sharply to the right and continues north for as far as you can see. There is a door in the left-hand wall which is ajar, and you hear someone cry for help from the other side of it. The door opens into a small room with a straw-covered floor. There is a large draped cage standing some 2 meters high in the center of the room. A cord fixed to the top of the drape runs through an iron ring in the ceiling and hangs down to the floor. You pull the cord and watch the drape as it rises up the sides of an iron cage. The woman's voice urges you to be quick, telling you that the room is booby-trapped so that the floor will fall away in 1 minute because of your extra weight. The drape rises to the top of the cage, and there, to your horror, you see the face of an aged woman whose hair is a mass of seething snakes. It is the dreaded Medusa. Are you lucky enough to avoid her gaze? Recognizing the snake-like head of the Medusa, you close your eyes to avoid her deadly stare that would turn you to stone. The Medusa shrieks as you enter her cage. Keeping your eyes firmly closed and slashing your sword wildly from side to side, you feel the blade sink deep into her side and hear a loud thud as she slumps heavily to the ground. You open your eyes again and shudder at the sight of the prostrate figure of the Medusa. Her gown is fastened by a large brooch bearing a single bright red gem. It is a garnet, and you prize it out of its setting, put it in your pocket, and leave the room to head north. The tunnel continues for quite a distance before you reach a junction. Ahead, you see that the tunnel turns a corner, beyond which it continues north. You stop before the corner, startled by the sound of high-pitched voices, whispering and sniggering. You peep around the corner and see 2 small creatures running away from you. Both are dressed in baggy clothes and wear pointed floppy hats. They are mischievous leprechauns. Running after the leprechauns, you hear more laughter, only now it is behind you. You look round and see 6 more emerging from a hidden door in the tunnel wall. Yet another leprechaun drops on your back from a ledge fixed to the ceiling. Shaking him off, you draw your sword, whereupon the laughing gets even louder. You push past the 2 leprechauns and head off north, the noise of jeering and laughter ringing in your ears. Further up the tunnel, you stop to rest and check your belongings. Any jewels you had are now gone. The leprechauns that landed on your back stole them from your backpack. You curse. The tunnel continues for Before you can take a single step towards the leprechauns, one of them throws some sparkling dust at you. You are immediately frozen to the spot, unable to move a muscle. You watch helplessly as the leprechauns rummage through your backpack and run off with all your possessions, leaving your backpack empty and also robbing you of 2 luck points. About an hour later, the freezing effect of the dust wears off and feeling returns to your limbs. You are angry at your loss and stomp off north, determined to have your revenge. The tunnel leads north for some distance before coming to a dead end. The mouth of a chute protrudes from the tunnel's eastern wall. It seems to be the only way out, so you decide to risk it and climb into the chute. You slide gently down and emerge in a new room, landing on your back. As soon as you stand up, you are confronted by the most repulsive sight you have ever laid eyes on. There in front of you, wallowing in a circular pool of fetid slime, is a bulbous creature too horrible to be believed. Its body is green and covered all over with fearsome-looking spikes. Its face is a mass of crimson blisters, one of which suddenly bursts to reveal yet another of its many sinister, all-seeing eyes. A narrow path runs around the edge of the pool and leads into another tunnel in the far wall. Remembering the description of the vile blood beast and the warning about the toxic gas rising from its pool, you cover your mouth with your sleeve and step forward with your sword drawn, wary of the blood beast's tongue. As you step around the side of the pool, it rolls forward and flicks out its tongue, but you are ready for it and cleave it with one swipe of your sword. The beast howls in pain and stretches forward frantically, trying to clasp you between its blood-filled jaws. You start hacking at its hideous face in an attempt to pierce its real eyes. Breathing heavily during your fight, you begin to succumb to the toxic gas and fall, cracking your head on the floor. You quickly eat some provisions, increasing your stamina by 4 points. The creature reaches for you with its mouth from the pool. You step back to avoid it, but slip on its fetid slime. It sinks its teeth into your ankle, costing you precious stamina. The blood beast's tail whips around you. You duck, but not quickly enough, and it punctures your arm deeply. Your blade strikes one of the blood beast's real eyes with devastating effect. It slumps back into its pool, thrashing about in a frenzy. You seize the opportunity and run around the side of the pool to the tunnel exit. The tunnel leads into a large room, its ceiling supported by several marble pillars. As you enter the room, you see a strange beast to your right. It has the body of a lion with dragon-like wings attached to it, but its head is like that of an old bearded man. You recognize the beast. It is a manticore. Taking heed of the warning poem you took from the skeleton warrior, you watch out for its tail, which sprouts a profusion of sharp spikes at its tip, thick and hard as iron bolts. You raise your shield in front of you just in time to protect yourself from a volley of spikes released from the manticore's tail and aim straight at your heart. They sink into your shield, and you remain unharmed. Swiftly, you draw your sword and advance on the manticore. You quickly eat some provisions, increasing your stamina by 4 points. You run to avoid the whipping tail, but stumble, and a spike from it thuds agonizingly into your shoulder. You seize an opportunity to attack the creature's back leg and manage to bury your sword deep into his thigh. You lunge at the creature's stomach with your sword drawn. It tries to move, but you land a powerful blow.
As you are wiping the manticore's blood from your sword, you are surprised to see a small man jump out from behind one of the marble pillars. He is dressed in a tight-fitting green tunic and looks quite harmless, although you are wary of the way he is holding an opaque glass ball with a shimmering green light. "Greetings," he says cheerfully. "My name is Igbot, the gnome, and I am the trial master for your final test. Needless to say, my magical powers are great, so you should not try to attack me. You may have learnt, during your quest, that gems play an essential part in the trial of champions. The iron door in front of you is the victory exit, but there is only one way of opening it. 3 gems have to be put into the lock mechanism in the correct order. Each gem radiates a unique energy, which will trigger the mechanism. If you do it correctly, that is. But first, we need the correct gems. First, you will need an emerald." The gnome shakes his head and says, "I'm afraid that you have failed the trial of champions. Baron Succumvit's Deathtrap dungeon will keep its secrets for another year, as you will not be allowed to leave here. You are appointed my servant." The tunnel continues for quite a distance. A brown velvet curtain is draped over an archway in the eastern wall of the tunnel. You enter a cold room, divided by a deep chasm. A rope is stretched taut across the chasm to the far side, where a magnificent winged helmet rests on top of a pole. Testing every last drop of your skill, you step nervously onto the rope, not daring to look down. Halfway across, you start to panic and lose your footing. Walking on a rope like this requires skill. Well, test yours. As you fall, you manage to grab the rope with your hands. Slowly, you haul yourself over to the far side and scramble up onto the floor. You lift the helmet off the pole and put it on your head. It has been made by a highly skilled ironsmith and increases your skill by 1 point. Not wanting to risk walking back across the tightrope, you decide to crawl along it. Safely back on firm ground, you step through the archway and head north, up the tunnel. The tunnel continues north a long way before turning sharp right. Around the corner you come to a dead end. Only the mouth of a wooden chute in the wall. As soon as you stand up,
The creature reaches for you with...
You quickly eat some provisions, increasing your stamina by 4 points.
The blood beast's tail whips around you. The creature launches its head out of the pool in front of you.
your blade the tunnel. You recognize. You raise your shield in front.
You seize an opportunity to attack the creature's back leg and manage to bury your sword deep into his thigh. You lunge at the creature's stomach with your sword drawn, but just as you thought you'd land a crushing blow, the creature whips around, parrying your effort. Neither of you are harmed. You lunge at the creature's stomach with your sword drawn. It tries to move, but you land a powerful blow.
As you are wiping the manticore's blood from your... The gnome smiles and says, "You truly are a great adventurer. Now, you will also need a sapphire." The gnome, still smiling, says excitedly, "Excellent. Just one to go. Lastly, you'll need a diamond." The gnome shakes his head. After a short while, you arrive at a... Set back in the arched alcove in the tunnel wall, you see an ornate wooden chair carved in the shape of a demon-like bird of prey. You grip the arms of the chair tightly, half expecting a surge of energy or pain to rush through your body. Do you think luck is on your side? Squeezing the arm of the chair triggers a secret panel which springs into the air. You find a glass vial lying in a cavity. You pick it up and read the label. Doppelganger potion, 1 dose only. This liquid will make your body take on the shape of a nearby being. You place the strange potion in your backpack and continue north, where the tunnel starts to slope downwards and finally comes to an end at a deep pool enclosed by the tunnel wall. The words of the spirit girl's poem flash through your mind. When corridor doth water meet, do not make a quick retreat. Of course, it is here that she wants you to dive into the water. Now, you must decide what to do. Somewhat nervously, you take a deep breath and dive into the dark pool. The northern wall does not project very far beneath the surface of the water, and you decide to take the risk to swim under it. Soon, you start gasping for air and are forced to swim upwards. Trying not to think that you could be trapped in an old submerged tunnel, you are relieved when you surface into cool air. You are on the other side of the wall and can see the tunnel rising out of the water and continuing north into the distance. You wade out of the water and check if you've been lucky with the contents of your wet backpack. 2 portions of your provisions are saturated and are now inedible. Other than that, all your other possessions remain intact. You repack them carefully inside your backpack and set off north again. A little way along on the left of the tunnel wall, you reach the entrance of a large cavern from which you hear a girl's voice crying for help. You can just make out the shape of a human figure rolling about on the floor at the back of the cavern. As you approach the prostrate figure, you see she is an elf, one of your rivals in the Trial of Champions, and she is fighting for her life in the bone-crushing grip of an enormous boa constrictor. With one swipe of your trusty blade, you behead the boa constrictor. You uncoil its massive body from around the elf and try to resuscitate her. Her eyes open a little,
but you can see that there is no hope. She looks at you and smiles, and then says in a whisper, "Thank you. I know it's too late for me, but I will tell you what I have learned. Your way out lies ahead, but you need gems to unlock the final door. One of them is a diamond, but I do not know what the others are. Alas, I have not found a diamond, but would urge you to look for one. Good luck." Her eyes close, and she slumps down onto the cold floor. You watch sadly as she breathes her last, knowing she would not mind you take 2 of her daggers and search her leather backpack. Inside, you find some unleavened bread, a mirror, and a bone charm in the shape of a monkey. The bread contains secret elven healing herbs, which increase your stamina by 3 points. Feeling sad, yet strong, you pack away the mirror and the charm and leave the cavern to head north. Walking along the tunnel, you notice an iron grill in the floor. Lying in a hole about a meter deep, you see a grappling iron and a leather pouch. You reach down into the hole and suddenly your blood runs cold as you feel something warm and sticky wrapping itself around your arm. You manage to pull your arm out of the hole, but a hideous tentacled limb with unbelievably strong suckers is clinging to you. By the time you manage to cut yourself free, your arm is trembling with pain, and you wonder whether luck is on your side. Having had the sense not to put your sword arm into the hole, the effects of the tentacled arm are not too serious, meaning you only lose 1 skill point. You reach back into the hole and pull out the grappling iron and the leather pouch. Inside the pouch, you find a tiny brass bell. You pack away your new possessions and continue north. A door comes into view in the left-hand wall of the tunnel. You listen carefully at it and hear nothing. The door is not locked, and the handle turns easily. The door opens into a small dark room, which is empty apart from a sturdy wooden chest lying on a shelf on a far wall. The floor is thick with dust, and you can clearly see fresh footprints leading from the door to the chest and back again. You wonder whether one of your rivals is still ahead of you on the walk, or whether the chest has only recently been placed on the shelf by one of the trial masters. Although you check the chest carefully for any hidden devices, you are unable to see the trap inside it. As you lift the lid, an iron ball hanging on a cord swings back, shattering the glass capsule fixed inside the lid. A cloud of poisonous gas is instantly released into the air, and you stagger back, coughing and spluttering, losing 4 stamina points. Once the gas has cleared, you walk back to the chest and look inside. There is a pendant chain lying in the bottom of it, but somebody has already removed the stone from its setting. This annoys you so much that you throw the chain onto the floor and storm out of the room and up the tunnel. The tunnel starts to widen, and ahead you see it's opened into a huge cavern, from where you can hear the sound of many high-pitched voices. You creep up to the entrance and take a look inside. There are about 20 tiny people with long noses and ears running in a circle around a large golden effigy. You pour the contents of the glass vial into your mouth and swallow the clear liquid. Although you do not feel any immediate change, you hope that the potion will create the illusion that you are a troglodyte, just like the ones in front of you. Taking a deep breath, you step boldly into the cavern. The troglodytes continue their tribal dance, believing you to be one of them. You walk past them casually and head north. Unfortunately, the effects of the potion are short-lived. Suddenly, you hear a shriek behind you as one of the troglodytes spots you, and you are forced to run across the cavern floor. Ahead, you see an underground river running east to west through the cavern, and a wooden bridge crossing over it. After crossing the bridge, you run across the cavern floor. At last, you see a tunnel in the far wall, which you race down until you reach its end at a heavy wooden door. The door is locked. The key turns in the lock, and the door opens into a four-way intersection of the tunnel. There is nothing to be seen, either to the east or to the west, apart from the now familiar ceiling crystals giving off their dim light. And suddenly you hear a voice calling you. This way, this way. You are on the right track. It seems to be coming from somewhere directly ahead of you. Your curiosity gets the better of you, and you decide to walk towards the beckoning voice. The tunnel bends sharply to the right, and around the corner you see a little old man with a long beard, cowering behind a large wicker basket. The basket is tied to a rope, the other end of which disappears into the ceiling. The old man sounds very worried as he says, "Do not attack me, stranger. I pose no threat to you. I am simply here to help you. If you will be so kind as to offer me some sort of remuneration, I will gladly haul you up in the basket to the upper level. And believe me, that is where you ought to be." After paying off the old man, you climb into the wicker basket and watch as he tilts his head back and shouts, "Pull it up, Ivy!" The rope goes taut, and the basket rises jerkily off the ground. As you are hauled higher and higher, the old man calls out to you, saying, "You'll like Ivy. She's a nice girl. We call her Poison Ivy." He starts to laugh uncontrollably, and you wonder, somewhat apprehensively, just who is hauling you up. The basket goes through the ceiling, and you find yourself in a small chamber, face to face with an ugly old female troll. Her face is hairy and covered with warts. With a huge hand, she reaches forward and hauls you out of the basket, which she lets fall to the floor below. She grabs you round the throat and says in a husky voice, "I want paying too." You gaze around Ivy's room, seeing a painting of another troll hanging on the wall. You ask her if he is any relation. Suddenly her mood and expression change. She loosens her grip on you and smiles, saying, "Oh yes, that is my dear beloved brother Sourbelly. He has done very well for himself down south in Port Blacksand. He is now an Imperial Guard in Lord Azor's elite troop. I'm very proud of him. Ivy stares at the painting and continues to praise her brother. Smiling, you tell Ivy that you think she and Sourbelly look very alike. And then, while she stares admiringly at the painting, you pick up a broken stool, creep up behind her, and smash her over the back of the head with it as hard as you can. To your immense relief, she slumps, unconscious, to the floor. You search through the cupboards and boxes in Ivy's room, but you find nothing except an old bone, which you take with you. You leave the chamber by the east door. You find yourself standing at the end of a tunnel with a flight of stone steps leading downwards. From the floor below, you can hear the sound of barking dogs. You take the bone out of your backpack and throw it down the stairs. The barking grows louder, changing to snarls and growls when the bone lands on the floor. You walk slowly down the steps with your sword drawn and see two huge black guard dogs fighting over the bone. You run quickly past them and on down the tunnel. The tunnel veers sharply to the left and comes to an end at a high wall in which there is a door. You hear a ferocious roar from the other side of the wall, and you wonder what gargantuan beast could make such a noise. You tie the rope to the grappling iron and hurl it over the top of the wall. Its hooks dig into the stone, and you begin to haul yourself up. Peering over the top of the wall, you see an enormous dinosaur-like monster thrashing about in a sand-covered pit. Its tough hide is a mottled green color, and it stands some 10 meters tall on its muscular hind legs. Rows of razor-sharp teeth line its gigantic jaws, which open and close with bone-snapping power. There is a large double door in the wall on the far side of the pit, which appears to be the only way out of this section of the dungeon. The pit fiend's jaws snap at the monkey charm and pluck it out of the air. Suddenly its jaws spring open again, forced apart by the charm, which has expanded to fill its mouth. While the pit fiend thrashes around in the pit, trying to get rid of the charm, you lower yourself down into the pit to reach the double doors. In its mad rage, the pit fiend tries to crush you against the side of the wall with its massive body. Let's see if luck is on your side here. As the pit fiend slams its body against the wall, you let go of the rope and drop safely to the floor. You run towards the double doors and are relieved to feel them swing open as you push on them. You let them swing shut behind you and head north along the tunnel. Walking along, you see a red line painted across the tunnel floor and notice a sign on the wall which reads, "No weapons beyond this point." Without your weapons, you are more vulnerable, and the loss of your sword leaves you feeling almost naked and costing you 4 skill points. Wondering whether you have made the right decision, you follow the tunnel north. The tunnel leads into a marble-floored hall with pillars rising right up to the ceiling. As you cross the floor, your footsteps echo through the hall. The hairs on the back of your neck start to prickle, and you soon sense unseen eyes watching you. Unknown to you, one of your rivals is hiding behind a pillar. It is the ninja, a deadly assassin dressed in black robes. Without a sound, he steps out from behind the pillar and throws a star-edged disc at your back. Instinctively, an inner voice tells you to duck. But how's your luck? The razor-sharp disc whistles past your head and bites deep into one of the pillars. Turning to face your would-be assassin, you prepare yourself as he advances, his long sword drawn.
The ninja is fast, whipping past you and landing a powerful blow in your back. The ninja leaps at you, his sword screeching towards your head. You parry, but his sword bites deep into your arm. You quickly eat some provisions, increasing your stamina by 4 points. You find a used throwing disc and hurl it as the ninja unleashes another. He cackles with laughter as his thuds into your leg.
It was obviously the tunnel veers sharply to the left and comes to an end at a high wall in which you tie the rope to the You swing the grappling iron around your head and hurl it at the beast below. The pit fiend's huge jaws snap tight over the grappling iron, and then it jerks its head back. Still holding the rope, you are pulled off the wall and tumble to the bottom of the pit, costing you 4 stamina points. You stagger to your feet and draw your sword. You are only just in time, for the fearsome beast is closing in on you. Fast. The tunnel veers sharply to the left and comes to an end at a high wall in which there is a door. You hear a ferocious roar from the... You tie the rope. You lower yourself down the rope into the pit with one hand, using the other to grip your sword. The pit fiend is one of the most fearsome beasts you have ever seen, and you know this is to be one of the hardest fights of your life.
You quickly eat some provisions, increasing your stamina by 4 points. You run to avoid the whipping tail, but stumble. And with a speed you could never imagine from a creature this size, it sinks its teeth agonizingly into your leg. The giant creature whips its huge tail directly at you. You duck too late and it smashes you onto a wall, costing you valuable stamina. You seize an opportunity to attack the creature's leg, but it's ready for you. Before you can strike, it pierces your shoulder with its razor-sharp claw.
You are exhausted and sit down for a rest on the tail of the dead beast. Looking down at your feet, you suddenly notice an iron ring poking up through the sand. The iron ring is attached to a small trap door It lifts up easily, and inside a small compartment you find a finely crafted shield made of the purest iron. Marveling at its splendor, you strap it on your arm, gaining you 1 skill point. You walk towards the double doors and push them open. The doors open into a tunnel running north. You close the doors behind you and set off once again. Walking along, you see a red line painted across the tunnel floor and notice a sign on the wall which reads, "No weapons beyond this point." The tunnel leads into a marble-floored hall with pillars rising right up to the ceiling. As you cross the floor, your footsteps echo through the hall. The hairs on the back of your neck start to prickle, and you soon sense unseen eyes watching you. Unknown to you, one of your rivals is hiding behind a pillar. It is the ninja, a deadly assassin dressed in black robes. Without a sound, he steps out from behind the pillar and throws a star-edged disc at your back. Instinctively, an inner voice tells you to duck. But how's your luck? The razor-sharp disc whistles past your head and bites deep into one of the pillars. Turning to face your would-be assassin, you prepare yourself as he advances, his long sword drawn.
The ninja is fast, whipping past you and landing a powerful blow in your back. The ninja leaps at you, his sword screeching towards your head. You parry, but his sword bites deep into your arm.
A razor-sharp disc thuds into your chest, knocking you off balance. As you land on your back, you feel the ninja's sword against your throat. Your adventure ends here.
Hey everyone, thanks for watching this episode, and as usual, leave a comment down below, subscribe for more video updates, and share this on your Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, and all the social medias. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button and to turn on the notification bell to stay up to date on my YouTube channel. And if you guys want to help me out in some shape or form, I do have a Patreon account down below in the description box. And as usual, thank you for watching everybody, and have a pleasant day. Bye bye.